Picture this. It is 1968. The Vietnam War is tearing the country apart. Cities are burning. And somewhere in a darkened movie theater, an exhausted audience is suddenly gripping their armrests because a dark green Ford Mustang just launched off a San Francisco hill at over 100 miles per hour. No CGI, no safety nets. Just steel, rubber, and a man named Steve McQueen who refused to fake a single second of it. That chase did not just define a movie. It defined a car, a decade, and the very idea of what a movie car chase could be. But the real story of the 1968 Ford Mustang Fastback from Bullitt goes so much deeper than anything you saw on screen. The secrets behind this car, the two cars, the missing decades, the letter McQueen wrote, the family that said no, every one of them hits harder than the film itself. But real quick before we start, comment the classic car you want us to cover next. The comment with the most likes becomes our next video. Okay, let's get into it. Number 20. The promotional deal that built a legend. The 1968 Mustang did not end up in Bullitt by accident. Behind it was a calculated promotional agreement between Ford Motor Company and Warner Brothers. Ford was under real pressure in 1968. The Chevrolet Camaro and the Pontiac Firebird had arrived the year before and were eating into the pony car market that the Mustang had essentially invented. Sales were softening. Ford's marketing team knew that placing its car alongside Steve McQueen in a major motion picture was worth more than any print ad campaign money could buy. McQueen was not simply a movie star. He was a genuine racing enthusiast who had competed at Le Mans and understood cars at a mechanical level most actors never approached. When Solar Productions, McQueen's own production company, began developing Bullitt for Warner Brothers, the car was never a prop. It was a co-star. Ford agreed to provide vehicles in exchange for the Mustang being Frank Bullitt's machine of choice. What neither Ford nor Warner Brothers anticipated was that the car would spend the next 50 years being discussed more than the film itself. The deal that was supposed to sell Mustangs in 1968 ended up creating a piece of automotive mythology that no advertising budget could ever replicate. Number 19. Two cars with sequential serial numbers. When Warner Brothers placed the order, they did not ask for one car. They asked for two. Both were 1968 Ford Mustang GT Fastbacks. Both were painted the same color. Both carried 4-speed manual transmissions and the same engine. And in a detail that would later thrill automotive historians, the two cars carried back-to-back vehicle identification numbers. The first was 8R02S125558, and the second was 8R02S125559. Rolled off the production line one right after the other. The studio bought them as a matched pair, knowing that the stunt work would be brutal and that no single car was going to survive the entire production. Car number 558 would handle the dangerous stunt sequences. Car number 559 would be reserved for beauty shots and close-up driving with McQueen himself at the wheel. Together, they made one of the most famous cars in cinema history. Separately, they had wildly different futures. Number 18. The color is not green, it is dark Highland green. If you have ever called the Bullitt Mustang simply a green car, you have quietly upset every serious Mustang collector in the room. The official Ford color code for this vehicle is dark Highland green metallic. It is a deep, almost military shade that reads completely differently depending on lighting conditions. In bright sunshine, it has a rich, jewel-like quality. In the shadow of San Francisco's steep hillside streets during filming, it looks nearly black. That ambiguity was intentional. Before shooting began, the studio deliberately weathered the paint on both Mustangs, scuffing the finish, removing the showroom shine, making them look like working cars that had been driven hard by a real detective. The gas caps were painted flat black. The result was a car that looked nothing like something a Hollywood actor would drive to a premiere. It looked like something a real cop in a real city drove on a real and dangerous job. Dark Highland green, in that weathered condition, became one of the most instantly recognized color and model combinations in the history of the automobile. Number 17. The radical modifications by Max Balchowsky. The two Mustangs arrived from the factory in solid mechanical condition, but solid was not going to be enough for what McQueen and director Peter Yates had planned. The man called in to prepare the cars was Max Balchowsky, a legendary California racing car builder, already famous for his series of cars known as Old Yeller. Balchowsky set about transforming the Mustangs from capable production cars into machines that could absorb serious punishment at high speed over rough urban terrain. He installed Coney adjustable shock absorbers and strengthened the suspension pickup points with heavy-duty springs. The stock exhaust system lost its transverse rear muffler entirely, replaced by straight pipes exiting from the back, producing the deep, thundering note audiences heard when the Mustang launched hard. Multiple camera mounts were fitted at various points around the body, allowing cinematographer William Fraker to capture footage from angles that had rarely been used in production filmmaking. Both cars were inspected and checked every night after filming, because the San Francisco hills were delivering serious punishment to the suspension each day, and a failure at speed would have been catastrophic. Number 16. Ford sent Galaxies first, and they were terrible. Before the now iconic Mustang vs. Charger setup was finalized, Ford's promotional agreement with Warner Brothers included an initial plan for the villain's car also to be a Ford product. Two 1968 Galaxy sedans were lent to the production for the chase sequences. The idea of a Mustang vs. Galaxy battle lasted exactly as long as it took the crew to drive the big sedans over the city's hills. The heavy full-size cars could not keep pace with the Mustang. They could not get air on the steep crests. They could not corner with any urgency. Director Peter Yates also despised the idea of two Fords chasing each other. The pursuit needed a car that looked genuinely threatening, something visually opposite to the lean Fastback. The Galaxies were sent back. Three 1968 Dodge Charger RT models with 440 cubic inch Magnum V8 engines were sourced from a Chrysler dealer in Glendale, California, and painted black. Two were used in production, and the Mustang vs. Charger dynamic became one of the most visually compelling rivalries in movie history. Number 15. McQueen stripped the car and made it his own. McQueen did not simply receive the Mustangs and drive them as delivered. He had specific ideas about how the car should look, and he implemented every one of them. All exterior badging was removed. Every chrome piece on the grille was stripped off, and the entire grille surface painted black, giving the nose a flat, aggressive expression, unlike anything in Ford's showroom. The stock steel wheels were replaced with 15-inch American Racing Torque Thrust D magnesium wheels, the same type found on purpose-built race cars of the era. McQueen also had the stock steering wheel replaced with a unit from a 1967 Shelby GT500, then called in his friend Tony Nancy, a legendary hot rod upholstery specialist, to wrap that Shelby wheel in leather. Every change McQueen made pushed the car away from the showroom and towards something rawer and more purposeful. He understood instinctively that audiences would believe in a car that looked chosen by someone who genuinely knew what he was doing, and everything he did to that Mustang reinforced exactly that. Number 14. The Charger was actually faster, and the drivers kept slowing down. Here is the secret hiding inside the most famous car chase in Hollywood history. The 1968 Dodge Charger RT, with its 440 cubic inch Magnum engine, produced 375 horsepower from the factory. The Mustang's 390 cubic inch FE-V8 produced 325. The villain's car was faster. Not slightly, meaningfully. Bill Hickman, the veteran stunt driver piloting the Charger, who also played one of the hitmen on screen, was so committed to realism that the Charger regularly began pulling away from the Mustang during filming, not because of any script choice, but simply because the physics of the two vehicles demanded it. In an article published in Muscle Car Review in March 1987, a participant in the filming confirmed that Hickman and Bud Ekins, driving the Mustang during stunt sequences, had to repeatedly manage their speeds deliberately to keep the cars visually close on camera. If both had driven flat out, the Charger would have disappeared into the distance and there would have been no chase at all. Number 13. The Rehearsal at Cotati Speedway. Before a single frame of the chase was shot on city streets, McQueen and the team spent 2 weeks at Cotati Speedway, a road course approximately 45 miles north of San Francisco. McQueen and Bill Hickman needed to become comfortable driving side by side at over 100 miles per hour before doing it, surrounded by traffic and camera crews on live city streets. McQueen described the preparation in a promotional interview for the film, saying that from the beginning they felt they needed to work in close harmony at a racetrack so that Hickman and himself would be used to operating together at high speed. The two men practiced lap after lap, learning each other's reactions, building the trust that only comes from real hours spent at speed together. By the time the cameras rolled in San Francisco, both drivers had a shared vocabulary of timing and spacing. What audiences experienced as spontaneous adrenaline was the product of meticulous preparation conducted entirely out of public sight on a Northern California racecourse. Number 12. 50 people and 30 city blocks. The logistics of filming the Bullitt chase were staggering, particularly for a production in 1968 without digital coordination tools. At any given time during filming, the crew on the streets of San Francisco numbered between 50 and 60 people. Actors, stunt drivers, camera operators running multiple units simultaneously, sound recordists capturing the exhaust from inside the cabin, and communications personnel managing the entire operation by radio across up to 30 city blocks. City officials had initially resisted the proposal to film high-speed sequences on public streets, and a plan to shoot on the Golden Gate Bridge was refused outright. A compromise was reached, allowing filming within a contained area of the city. To the viewer watching the finished film, the chase appears to flow seamlessly from neighborhood to neighborhood. In reality, the various locations are completely disjointed. The chase route cannot be driven as a continuous path because legendary film editor Frank P. Keller stitched together streets that do not actually connect, making them feel like one breathless, unbroken experience. Number 11. The mirror trick that revealed who was really driving. McQueen was publicly credited with driving the Mustang throughout the chase. This was not entirely accurate. The more physically dangerous stunt passages were handled by Bud Ekins, one of the finest stunt drivers in the business, the same man who had performed McQueen's famous motorcycle jump in The Great Escape. McQueen drove a substantial portion of the chase himself and was deeply committed to being at the wheel as much as safely possible. But careful frame-by-frame analysis of the finished film reveals a detail hiding in plain sight for decades. In interior shots looking forward through the Mustang's windshield, the position of the rearview mirror tells you exactly who is driving. When McQueen is behind the wheel, the mirror is angled down and his face is visible reflecting in it. When Ekins takes over for the riskier sequences, the mirror is tilted upward, keeping his face hidden. McQueen's then-wife Neil Adams, watching some of the more dangerous shooting on location, reportedly begged director Peter Yates to use stuntmen more extensively after McQueen lost control during one pass and struck a parked vehicle. Number 10. The missed turn that became the most famous moment in the sequence. During one pass through the intersection of Larkin and Chestnut Streets, McQueen overshot a right-hand turn while pursuing the Charger. It was a genuine mistake. He had driven past his mark, and the natural response was to stop, reverse, and try again. That is exactly what McQueen did, and director Peter Yates kept the cameras rolling the entire time. What followed was McQueen reversing the Mustang back into position, then hammering the throttle and smoking the left rear tire in a burnout as the car launched hard into the corner. The footage was not discarded. Yates loved it. McQueen loved it. The mistake looked so viscerally real and completely authentic that including it made the entire sequence feel more believable, like genuine pursuit, not choreography. The improvised burnout became one of the most recognized single moments in the chase. McQueen's habit of sticking his head out of the open driver's window at various points during filming was also unscripted. His deliberate choice to let audiences see his face and know without question who was at the wheel. Number 9. The Volkswagen Beetle that would not stop appearing. Every film generates continuity errors, but the Bullitt chase sequence produced one of the most affectionately mocked examples in cinema history. During the nearly 11 minutes of chase footage, the same dark-colored Volkswagen Beetle appears on screen at least 3 separate times. The car was simply parked on the street as incidental background scenery during filming, an ordinary civilian vehicle that the crew presumably never considered. But because the chase was assembled from footage shot at various times across disconnected locations, that Beetle keeps turning up in the edited sequence in a way that makes it appear to teleport across the city, always conveniently positioned somewhere along the route. A white Pontiac Firebird performs a similar trick, appearing at least twice. These errors have generated decades of affectionate jokes among fans. Equally famous are the 6 hubcaps that fly off the Charger during the chase, when the car technically has only 4 wheels. Max Balchowsky confirmed that the crew kept replacing the Charger's hubcaps between takes because the high-speed cornering kept sending them flying, creating an accidental surplus of airborne hubcaps across the assembled sequence. Number 8. The Oscar won on the back of the chase. The editing of the Bullitt chase sequence is widely regarded as one of the finest examples of action editing in Hollywood history. The man responsible was Frank P. Keller, and his work assembling a coherent, breathless, spatially continuous chase from footage shot over weeks at disconnected locations across 30 city blocks was genuinely extraordinary. Keller wove hundreds of individual shots, wide views, tight cockpit footage, close-ups of shifting hands and working feet, aerial angles, low road-level frames, into a sequence that feels like one continuous experience. His pacing was exceptional. The first 90 seconds of the sequence are almost quiet by comparison to what follows, allowing tension to accumulate before the full violence of speed arrives. That restraint was an editorial decision. The Academy agreed the work was remarkable. Frank P. Keller won the Academy Award for Best Film Editing for 1968, with the Bullitt chase at the center of that recognition. The film also received a Best Sound nomination, an editing Oscar for a car chase, for what many dismissed as pure spectacle, validated the craft and intelligence behind the production at the highest possible level. Number 7. The stunt car was destroyed, then found in Mexico. Car 558, the Mustang used for the heavy stunt work, did not survive the production in any meaningful condition. Weeks of jumps, hard braking, and high-speed cornering over San Francisco's punishing surfaces left it severely damaged. After filming wrapped, it was sent to a scrapyard and assumed to be gone forever. Then, in 2016, a man named Hugo Sanchez purchased 2 old Mustang coupes from the backyard of a property near Los Cabos, Mexico. He sent both to custom builder Ralph Garcia Jr., who planned to turn one into a replica of the Eleanor Mustang from Gone in 60 Seconds. Garcia recognized that one of the two was an S-code car, meaning it carried the big block 390 engine package, and had it authenticated by Kevin Marty, a Ford historian based in Phoenix. Marty's authentication confirmed the car was the lost Bullitt stunt Mustang, number 558. It was just a shell. The mechanicals were long gone. The body had spent decades exposed to the elements. But it was the car. In 2017, Sanchez and Garcia began a full restoration of the surviving remains, bringing one of the great lost artifacts of automotive cinema back from the edge. Number 6. The hero car became a daily driver in New Jersey. After filming concluded, car 559 was repaired and given a fresh single coat of Highland green paint at Precision Auto Body in Hollywood at a cost of $920.16. Warner Brothers then sold it to a studio employee named Robert Ross, who drove it as a personal car until 1970, before selling it to a New Jersey detective named Frank Maranka for $6,000. Maranka had the car shipped by rail to the East Coast and drove it sparingly until 1974, when he decided to sell. He placed a classified ad in the October 1974 issue of Road and Track magazine. The ad, slightly misspelled, read, "1968 Bullitt Mustang, driven by McQueen in the movie, can be documented. Best offer." According to Sean Kiernan, his father Robert was the only person who ever called. Robert and Robbie Kiernan were both 26 years old. They paid approximately $6,000, twice the going rate for a used Fastback. The Bullitt Mustang became their only family car. Robbie drove it to the school where she taught 3rd grade. Robert commuted to New York by train, leaving the car at home. Number 5. Steve McQueen called, and the family said no. By 1977, McQueen had become determined to get back the car he had made famous. He tracked down Frank Maranka, who provided the Kiernan family's phone number. McQueen called Robert Kiernan directly. He wanted to buy the Mustang. The answer was no. McQueen followed up with a written letter on Solar Productions' letterhead. In it, he explained that he would like very much to keep the car in its original condition as it was used in the film, rather than have it restored, describing it as simply personal with him. He proposed a trade or some arrangement, as long as it was not, in McQueen's own phrasing, too much monies. Robert Kiernan never answered the letter. The family continued to drive the Mustang, eventually accumulating 46,000 personal miles before putting it into storage in 1980. McQueen passed away in November of 1980, never having gotten his car back. The letter he wrote remained in the Kiernan family's possession for decades, eventually becoming one of the most important authentication documents in the vehicle's history. Number 4. The car sat hidden for decades. The Kiernans stored the Bullitt Mustang through the entire 1980s, 90s, and 2000s, while the automotive world gradually assumed the car was gone forever. Sean Kiernan, Robert's son, had inherited the vehicle after his father's passing. The rediscovery began unexpectedly in 2017, when custom builder Ralph Garcia Jr. called Kevin Marty's Phoenix shop seeking documentation for what he believed was an unrelated Mustang project. He read out a vehicle identification number. Marty recognized it immediately. It was the serial number of car 559. He had it memorized. Marty told Garcia what that number represented and urged him to call the current owner before doing anything. The trail led to Sean Kiernan, who had been quietly approached by a filmmaker planning a documentary about the Bullitt Mustang and was wrestling with whether to come forward publicly. Sean completed a mechanical restoration, getting the car running again for the first time in decades, and began the formal authentication process. The letter from Steve McQueen, the original build documentation, and the sequential serial number all confirmed without question what the car was. Number 3. The Detroit reveal that stopped the crowd cold. Ford had been preparing for the 50th anniversary of the Bullitt film since well before January of 2018. The company planned to unveil a new limited edition production Mustang tribute model at the North American International Auto Show in Detroit. This new model, the 2019 Mustang Bullitt, would produce 480 horsepower using the GT350 intake manifold and cold air induction. It would wear dark Highland green as one of its available colors. But Ford, working in complete secrecy with Sean Kiernan, had arranged something far more powerful than any press release. On January 14, 2018, on stage at the Cobo Center in Detroit, the original hero car from the 1968 film, serial number 559, with its weathered paint, its torque-thrust wheels, and its battle-worn interior, rolled out alongside the new tribute model. Sean Kiernan drove it onto the stage himself. The car looked almost exactly as it had when his parents bought it in 1974. Steve McQueen's granddaughter Molly McQueen was present, seeing in person the car her grandfather had driven on screen and tried to buy back. The original 1977 letter was displayed alongside the car. The response from the crowd was immediate and overwhelming. Number 2. The auction result that no one predicted. The Kiernan family had owned the Bullitt Mustang for 46 years. They had used it as a daily driver. They had refused Steve McQueen. They had stored it through 30 years of silence. They had brought it back to life and revealed it to the world. Then, in January of 2020, Sean Kiernan announced that the family had decided to sell. The car went to Mecum Auctions in Kissimmee, Florida. On January 10, 2020, the gavel came down on $3,740,000. The buyer has never been publicly identified. A car that Robert Kiernan had purchased through a slightly misspelled classified ad for approximately $6,000, twice the going rate for a used Fastback, became the most expensive Mustang ever sold at auction at that time. The vehicle that launched off San Francisco hills at over 110 miles per hour, that won an Oscar by proxy, that outlasted its most famous driver, and that rolled onto a Detroit stage and stopped a crowd cold, sold for a number that nobody who saw that 1974 road and track advertisement could have imagined. Number 1. The small details that made the chase immortal. Strip away everything: the celebrity, the auction record, the letter McQueen wrote, the missing decades, and what remains is 11 minutes of footage shot on real streets, at real speed, with real mechanical consequences, and no digital safety net. The sound design was captured live, with recording equipment mounted inside the Mustang's cabin as McQueen worked the 4-speed gearbox through each gear. The exhaust note audiences heard was the actual 390 Farm V8 through Balchowsky's straight pipes, not a studio recording. The tire squeal on the hills was real rubber on real San Francisco asphalt. When the Mustang hit the crest of a hill at 65 miles per hour and went airborne, both the chassis and the driver absorbed the landing without any theatrical assistance. Peter Yates had insisted on using the new, nimble, lightweight Aeroflex camera for location shooting, giving the cinematography a mobile, documentary quality that studio-bound productions could not replicate. Every choice made in production, from the weathered paint to the removed badges to the leather-wrapped Shelby steering wheel, pointed in the same direction, toward the feeling that what you were watching was real and earned. And because everything pointed that direction with total commitment, it was. The 1968 Mustang Fastback from Bullitt did not become a legend because a studio decided it should. It became a legend because a group of deeply committed, exceptionally skilled people worked very hard and very deliberately to make absolutely sure it deserved to be one.